Warning, the following video contains spoilers. If you don't want this episode spoiled for you, switch the video off now.
The Timeshift.
What? I mean, what did you what just happened? I mean, look, I want to talk about the thing, you want me to talk about the thing, we all want to talk about the thing, but before I talk about the thing, I have to tell that joke that I teased last week for getting to 5 likes on that video. So quickly, here's that joke. Oh boy, I really like last week's villain. Would be a real shame if someone made erotic fanfiction of her, cause she has one hell of a arachnos. Yeah, I know it's a terrible joke, it's whatever, we've got bigger fish to fry here. And if this video gets to 5 likes, then I'll tell you about a supposed leak/theory about the Roof Doctor, which is so troubling that if it's true, it may make me stop watching the show altogether. I'm not talking about her being pre-Hartnell either. This is a theory that goes way beyond that and is far worse than even that could be. So, this is an episode which purely exists to set up the mystery for the rest of the season and developing it a little bit more and adding extra twist. So as such, the whole Judoon on the moon, by the lagoon stuff, as fun and funny as that was, ultimately it wasn't really that important. Though to be honest with you, I'll take not being important over it all being seemingly forgotten, like the story stuff was within the second part of Spyfall. The major issue with this episode is it is just set up. It's set up and nothing really gets resolved in this episode and may not get resolved until the end of this series, or even the Christmas special, or goodness knows how many other series or episodes time. This might not get resolved until Jodie Whittaker leaves the show. This might not get resolved until Chris Chibnall leaves the show. I'd like to think that we're going to get a resolution at the end of this season, but we just don't know at this point. So that means that this episode exists purely and simply to further the overall story arc, rather than actually to provide us with a concrete and solid adventure that we can sit back and say, yeah, that was one hell of an adventure. But still, what we got was certainly something. Next week's episode will just be another episode of Doctor Who. Not to say there's anything wrong with that, but I find it incredibly unlikely that we're going to have quite the same level of, oh my god, going into that episode as this one, given everything that happened in it. I do get the feeling that next week's episode is going to be the one that's going to reintroduce the Black Guardian into it. Maybe he will figure into all this mess somehow, we'll soon see. In terms of shock value, I'm honestly shocked to see Captain Jack back. I mean, up until the episode was coming out, I was scoffing at the merry idea that he would be coming back for this. Like, I even wrote it on my notes, my episode notes, before getting into all this. I thought that this was the episode that's going to introduce the Black Guardian, and it was going to be a reference that's going to be lost in everybody, and everybody thinking it was going to be Captain Jack or River Song, and everyone was going to be completely upset. But that wasn't the case. It wasn't the Black Guardian, it was Captain Jack. Jackie's back, seemingly for just the one episode, but maybe he'll be back in the future. Depending on contracts and stuff, we'll soon see. I mean, if he isn't back this season, then I'd like to see him back in the Christmas special, but we'll soon see about that. All I know is that Twitter and social media and everything was exploding at the mere sight of him. As soon as you heard his voice, you know, fabulous! He's here! He's here! And it's amazing! To be honest with you, I wasn't really much of a fan of him the first time round, but seeing him here and now, holy crikey jumbo, it's good to see him back, even if it's just for a short while. I'm just shocked how the hell they kept that a secret. They kept the Master being a secret, they kept Jack being a secret. Who else could we see in this season? I mean, it's been rumoured that maybe Rose is going to come back, or maybe the Valeyard, which are two massive things which at this point, given the fact they brought back the Master and Captain Jack and no one knew about it, we just don't know at this point. Look, to briefly talk about the performances, because there's not much to really talk about bar 2 performances in particular, the companions once again just kind of felt like they were there. They didn't really do much apart from have exposition dealt to them and to then deliver exposition to the Doctor later on. And again, they were stood in the TARDIS towards the end of this episode like they're on some kind of TARDIS-themed tourist trap, like that Doctor Who exhibit that comes out every couple of years ago. As though they were just a family, a group of work friends having a picture taken. Nothing wrong with that for anybody that does that, but when I'm watching a Doctor Who television programme, you know, I want a little bit more dynamism in what they're doing, you know. They could have at least been, like, sat around the Doctor consoling her, or, hell, just having a hamburger, something. Some kind of busy work could have been interesting, but no. They were just stood there posing like they were posing for an album cover. Jodie Whittaker continues to develop her Doctor in interesting ways. It's seeming like her Doctor is becoming increasingly angsty and bitter sounding, almost like an inverse of the 12th, 6th and 1st Doctors, who all started bitter and kind of angsty to begin with, but as time went by became softer and more approachable. I really hope this is going to be more of a thing coming forward. Whilst I am hesitant for her to become a hard ass by the end of a run, I want some kind of edge to her, which we're starting to see here. She's dealing with stuff that's bigger than anything she could ever comprehend before, and she doesn't want to get her companions involved with it in case it breaks them, or she says or does something that might piss them off or upset them. The kind of balance of her trying to be everybody's friend and come on, fam! And the reality that she's dealing with stuff she never thought she'd ever deal with is a difficult battle for her, and we'll see where all that goes. I think that Jo Martin as what we'll call the Roof Doctor was fantastic. Even though if I am honestly troubled as to where she might fit in with all of this, I honestly wouldn't mind some kind of audiobook adventure of her in the future, or maybe an appearance by her in the 60th anniversary, because I hate to say it, but I think she makes for a better Doctor than Jodie Whittaker. I mean, I don't want to say it, but a lot of people are saying it, and I can't help but feel it. In her short time being this Doctor, or whatever she may end up turning out to be, she made a more of a compelling case than Whittaker has. Which I'm afraid to say, I mean, Whittaker hasn't been bad, but it's taken her nearly 2 seasons to really come into being the Doctor. And Jo Martin did it pretty much within the first 5 minutes of her being on screen. She has that kind of 6th Doctor sassiness without the arseholiness, but at that same point of view, that kind of wisdom that some of the older Doctors had, that gravitas to it that we desperately needed. But we'll soon see. I mean, they'll make audiobooks out of anything. They made audiobooks out of Class, for goodness sake. Oh my word. Now, with all that said and done, let us dive into the overview and a theory that I have as to where this may all end up going with this. Okay, so my overall feelings on the episode as a whole. Like I said earlier, the major issue that I have with this episode is that it's a lot of setup and not a lot of payoff. Yes, I understand that this is an episode designed so as to build up and big up the overall mission for this particular season, but I still feel as though that isn't enough. I would like that in addition to a fun adventure with a Judoon. You can do both. There's plenty of episodes that have done those two kind of things. Have an episode, but at the same time set up for a greater mystery. But at the same time, I'm not gonna lie, I found what we got to be rather dazzling. It had a feel of the Russell T Davies era in the best way possible. It was exciting, energetic, and was always surprising. It left me at the end of it feeling both excited and honestly scared for the future of this show. I'm just gonna say, if the Roof Doctor is pre-Hartnell, then that is gonna cause major problems. And if that leak that I mentioned earlier on, that I'll talk about in next week's video if we get to 5 likes, turns out to be true, it's going to cause even bigger problems still. I would like to think that Chibnall would be so reckless with the show to do something so potentially damaging to it. As to echo a point that I saw in a forum post, I think that if he goes down this path, he will burn off quite a hell of a lot of goodwill. And the show, beyond anything else, I don't think that it would necessarily survive that. It is only the most die-hard fans that have really kept this show going for the longest time. There's at least a good 4.5 million of us out there that are still watching the show regardless of quality. And if we get pissed off, well, that's pretty much good night Irene for the show, but we'll soon see about all that. However, I am kind of the opinion that the Roof Doctor is not a pre-Hartnell regeneration. And this is where we get into my little theory for where all this is going. Woo! Okay, so this is my theory. I feel that the alternate universe theory is true, but I feel that it goes a little bit further than that. I feel that at the time that this Doctor regenerated, she somehow fell into an alternate universe. Her and her TARDIS fell into a new universe which was similar enough to her own universe that nothing felt out of place, but is only now learning that it has its own Doctor and its own Master, and that she, as an entity to this universe, has no history and no future, and is therefore timeless, a timeless child. And as such, she will somehow restore the Time Laws to this universe. And that this universe's Master thought it was his Doctor that was the origin to all Time Lords, and that is why he destroyed them. this series will end up ending with our Doctor returning Time Lords to this universe, and then returning to her own universe, leaving her companions behind. This whole theory would explain why we have the Master back, despite the fact Missy was seemingly killed off in her final appearance. This would also explain why the Roof Doctor and our Doctor have no memory of either one of them ever existing, yet at the same time being genetically identical to one another. It also explains why our companions have never heard of Cybermen despite their frequent invasions of Earth, and it would also explain why the Time Lords in this universe seemingly have no knowledge of the Time War, let alone what this universe did to their planet. In this universe, what this Master did was those Time Lords equivalent to the Time War. So, my theory is, to sum it up, our Doctor, when she regenerated, her and her TARDIS fell into an alternate universe, one which had its own Doctor, Master and Time Lords, but was so similar to her own, and because the Doctor and the Master are such enigmatic, hard to find individuals, she never run up to them until now, and this whole season will be about her ultimately returning to her own universe. I would like to think that's the case, because I worried that if this is a pre-Hartnell regeneration, it's going to be a problem. A big problem. And if that theory leak thing I've heard that develops that even further is true, then goodness help us all. But anyway, what did you think, dear listener? What do you think about this week's episode of Doctor Who? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll get back to you shortly, either directly in the comments themselves or towards the end of a future video. And be sure to like, favourite and subscribe. If we get to 5 likes, I will end up telling you this weird theory thing towards next week's video, towards the start of it, but we'll see. Thank you for watching, thank you and goodbye.